a few minutes late, but we don't need to wait. All good? Okay. Call this meeting of the Port of Hood River Commission to order. No modifications that I got from commissioners. I know there's some from staff.
Right, well, it's great to be here.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It's been great. Just big shout out to Genevieve for everything she's done over the last several months, and the rest of the staff. So the things that adjustments to the agenda include the removal of 7B from the action items. And then the addition of the motion for the rope replacement project, which I believe would be added as an action item after executive session. Is that correct? Or does that just go on?
It'll just go as an action item.
Okay.
So you want to make that rope band 7B?
That'll be, there you go. Or E, yeah.
It's C, we just have different, we have more.
Oh, it's already there.
Yeah,
Okay,
great.
got it.
Good, okay, good, it's right there.
That's it.
Okay. There was a couple public comment items I saw in the packet. Anything else? No? Consent agenda. Motion to approve, please.
So move. That's right.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Consent agenda passed. We have one presentation this evening from Daryl.
I just wanted to quickly check in with all of you regarding the parts on the events I got. We did have one concession move in last spring and they couldn't pass the health department regulations. And so the heavy restrictions come in for 2023. And it was a great summer down there in my estimation of not a lot of work on the port's part, and the concession we did have come in did a really great job. But going forward, people have approached the port for opportunity to put food cart on the dock. And before I went forward, I thought I would check with you to see if you had strong feelings one way or another about that.
Daryl, do you have a visual of the area we're talking about, the dock area? Do you have by any chance?
Pull that out, Google Maps.
That way you talk about it, see the access and look at it. I drove down there and stuff and looked at it again, but I think it'd be helpful if we could find something and look at it and talk about it.
Daryl, I really like the idea of moving the food carts to another location down there. We could
Like,
have
and
to-
I have talked about it a lot with it's zoned to
Mhm.
have them along First Street. So
Yeah.
with moving things over, that would be a really great spot for them. If we were to do it somewhere else, or over if you could get the zoning to work, up behind Shepherd's. In that area there that we talked about. But can you pull up Google Maps? Did you see me on there?
Daryl, you mentioned the city in 2023, are they changing their requirements for?
The food cart restrictions increased significantly. Every single thing needs to be on board. They've had
Fully self-contained?
fully self-contained. So
Is that gonna eliminate our potential for clients? You think it's gonna eliminate people?
yes, a lot of
Into that.
people wouldn't be able to meet
Okay.
that. And then the tricky part is that the holding tanks put a huge load on the dock as well. And then just making it work, they would have to spend a lot of money to
And that goes in January 1?
that starts, their leases start,
No, part of the city,
yes.
January
It's
1,
the state,
oh, state.
yep, the state.
So
referred to the
statewide.
food cart law, yeah.
So Daryl, what you're talking about is the very end.
Yes, that you're, yes, that section of dock, so that would used to be the Sandbar Cafe.
Okay. And the four tents, the end of the 4 individual concessions
No, that was just the tents from the
Okay.
one.
for the sandbar. Okay.
So the issues with it were really just, the, wear and tear on the dock, compliance with the city as far as, the health department. And then the fact that anything leaking into Nichols Basin is a DEQ violation. And so there had been issues with that in the past. And other than that, just the congestion at the entrance of the event site with the loading and unloading and, them than the trash flowing around. But the benefits of it, it was a really nice thing to have at the end of the dock. For people to enjoy.
Does staff have any suggestion what we may do for a revenue stream in that area at all? Any idea? Or could
That's
you-
what I need to work on, just because the access down the ramp, you know, what you could have go in and out of there, or what you could place like structures in that area, along with not competing with the existing schools. So I have lots of people that would like to open wing schools. But the existing people would be really bummed out. We added one more to the mix right now. So just when we brought Fiona in with the Wild Wind and Water, she wasn't competing with anything else that anyone's doing. So if someone came to the board and had a proposal that wouldn't be a conflict and a good fit for that location, I would love that. That would be the ideal scenario.
So what you're saying, you think that the existing tenants would not be in favor of more vendors down? That's
They
price, it creates activity too, and you have more
they would be
vendors.
in favor of more, another tenant, as long as they weren't doing the same thing that they were doing, because the existing schools that teach the kiting and winging, they had a rough summer. And so they would not be in favor of me bringing in one more school that was teaching winging.
Well, are you asking about schools or are you asking about food cards?
Schools.
Yeah.
As far as the tenants down there now,
Yeah.
you know, we've got to look at it from our standpoint, from a revenue stream
Right.
too, not from,
Sure, but I would, my guess is that we saw the numbers several months ago about what we would actually have to charge to even close to breaking even, which is. And. The expense that the port has, time staff has to spend maintaining that dock. And the amount of money that these people would have to spend for the one or two cars to get on there, doesn't seem like a good spot. And I love food cars, and they're only getting more popular. In most places that you go, it seems like, I was in Portland this weekend. Food cart pods, 6 or 7 food carts, and a centralized either place to eat, bar in the middle with tables. Or it just, like you mentioned, it draws people and there's a lot of activity. That kind of idea, I think, great to think about down there. Have 6 or 7 tenants in a proper area, fun place. I like the idea.
Where could we put one of those down there?
so Craig got a
After-
suggestion.
After we take care of utilities on Anchor Way and move that, I would love to look at lot 5 for one of those things as an idea or something like that. There's already food carts right there.
I think Gregor's got an idea.
Just for clarification, lot 5 is zoned, the reason why the food carts are able to sit behind ferment is there's the waterfront overlay, there's a special sub area zone that allows that commercial activity to be located there. Lot 5, it wouldn't be allowable according to the city of Hood River because it's light industrial. But where it could be in the future, if there's a realignment of First Street, it's going to increase the physical land space between Nichols Basin and First Street. And there is a sub layer or sub area overlay from the waterfront's overlay zone that allows, I think, up to 10,000 square feet per spot. You might recognize it from the old like the Macy
Yeah.
Walker plants. That would be ideal for the location. And you're absolutely right. Anchor Way project is going to be necessary to bring the necessary utilities in. Because if you do have a pod, there has to be one collective like municipal sewer connection for all of those carts. And so it would take some infrastructure. It's not something we could do tomorrow, but if there is a better place there, it just takes a little bit of effort.
Tonight's not the night to go down that rabbit hole, but if we're interested in the possibility of something like that in our future as a revenue source, I think staff should know about it so that they can plan for it. And then we need to get back to Daryl's original question, as far as like the existing one on the dock, do we want it there or not, or do we want anyone there in the future or not? Those are the two.
Do you have any suggestions at all other than food vendors and sailboard vendors? Do you have any other suggestion that may generate revenue on that area? Still be
Don't yet,
low maintenance.
but I
Okay.
really would like to, dive into that. I've just been buried with summer.
Sure.
But right now, I haven't anyone that I have in mind that wouldn't either be a competitor of my existing vendors or a good fit for that location.
We-
Just because it is.
We have kayakers over on the other side.
Mhm.
Do they have a school over there for kayakers?
Yeah, they've got a school in Nichols Basin where it says Hood River Outrigger Canoe Club. Right below that is the Gorge Paddle Center, and then at the Hook, we also have another kayak and stuff rental. So the hard part on that dock is getting kayaks and stuff up and down the ramp. It works for Wild Wind and Water because they go early in the morning and they're not in the middle of the day when it's blasting windy and tons of people. So just, I mean, the right thing.
Just kind of side note there, bear with me. Regular, the lot next to Western Power City Park. That'd be a food cart area?
We're still running into the light industrial zoning.
Is that still light? Is that? commercial?
Yeah, well, there's an open space.
Okay.
That's, I don't believe you can have
Okay.
commercial activity on that either, but maritime, it's still light industrial there.
Because there's not a lot to remove if you change a different direction 5 years from now on food cart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this something that we could start having a conversation with the city about the limitations of the waterfront overlay zone and
It's certainly worth a shot. I think part of it is, it would be adding another sub area layer. Because that's how they were able to accomplish it in those areas before,
Mhm.
rather than a rezone, because a rezone would be more substantial effort to get that pushed through.
I mean, if they knew what the intent was and if they knew. Maybe they would be. At minimal to just seeing how much the waterfront has changed and grown over the last, since that overlay zone was put into place, maybe they would. Be a little bit more open to having a conversation.
So. I'm hearing yeses to the question, do we want staff to look into that? That's
Yeah.
not the question tonight, but do we want staff to look into that? As far as future,
Yeah, I think it's coming, it's inevitable, and it's minimal capital investment.
yeah,
It really
and
is.
you're right, you can.
What about the Marina Green? Is that even a possibility? Would that work
I
geographically?
think you're still on park space and open space, but
Okay.
I took a notional look at some of the locations down at the waterfront, and again, the zoning issue, but also you have to have the infrastructure in place vis-a-vis sanitary sewer connection. So there is gonna be some investment. It's not like you just throw down gravel and then, and they will come. That we have to put in some infrastructure in order to be able to get the permit for those individuals to be sited there.
I personally think it's worth looking at, especially if you know where the sewer system is. And try and position yourself where it's not a
Again, it's
project to put the infrastructure in.
it's down the road a bit, but the First Street realignment and the Anchorway extension, that's gonna create an ideal space that already has the zoning overlay that allows that. The infrastructure is gonna be installed for future developments. There's no immediate solution, but there are some good options down there.
If it's part of that development, or it could give us a revenue stream on the front end of that anchorway development, because those utilities are gonna cost some money. You're not gonna see revenue stream right away. That could be something
But it'd just
to
be
look at, it could be on the front end, but revenue start coming back.
be a good economic driver up and down.
Absolutely.
Waterfront. How about a carve out on lot one? Carve out a section strip, some commercial,
It's not.
A lot more, right, industrial.
the whole thing is,
Mhm.
isn't it a portion of it?
No,
Just barn.
Barman.
So, anyway.
Let's not
Yeah.
do that.
Bingo. Okay, we're done here. No.
Look into it. As part of future development, look into it, call it possible.
If I might interject for just a second, that piece on First Street right now. Is basically not used for anything but a turnaround by the Mount Adams bus, and they could certainly figure something else out. There isn't really any reason that couldn't be blocked off, and that short end of that block. Used as that right now where the electric car is parked. Somewhere there, like that spot's there, it's got drainage already.
Hard surface.
Yeah, so just that there is potentially somewhere we could go with that
So it
sooner
sounds
than
like-
later.
It sounds
Yeah.
like to me, the food carts
Yeah.
on the pier,
So.
they're gone. And I would vote not to replace them, not just leave it as a pier. And that answers your question, but then I think we ought to look real hard, real fast. At how could we get a quick revenue producer, which is a mini grouping of these food carts, pods. maybe down in that area that you're talking about. If that's the quickest way to get it in there. We can also always move it later. If we decide.
I thought that with the new city ordinances or the state ordinances, they had to be completely self-contained, so realistically speaking, sewer is a perk. Drainage is a perk, but they do have to be able to self-contain themselves and haul things off-site, so there is power down there with that e-vehicle that sits there all the time.
Use the restroom is the glitch.
Oh, thank you, Daryl.
So it has to be, the event site restroom made it as far as the footage to the top of the ramp at the boat. But you're supposed to, according to the rules, have running water, a restroom with running water, so people can wash their hands. And so the porta potties don't count. So we were pushing the limit with COVID, but they were lenient because of the situation, but when we only had restrooms, they still left them open.
So I've got one answer to both the questions at hand. Anybody else?
I just. We're gonna allow food carts on the pier and direct staff to keep pursuing this. And don't put on the back burner, but keep pursuing it. Yeah.
Agreed. It's good to be. Yeah, I'll try to find somebody that's a good fit down there to generate some revenue. I mean, there's gotta be something that would be really great.
Low maintenance for John.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the direction is no food carts on the dock,
Right.
but let's look into
Where we go.
opportunities in the short and long-term future. What might be revenue generators and good opportunities for us.
Excellent, thanks.
Make sense? Okay, thank you.
You know, if I could. Since we kind of opened up that discussion a little bit on that, is it area 100? But the big area there is lot 1?
Yeah. the big-
Yeah, lot 1 that, we've been trying to get infrastructure put in there for a while. I personally would like to hear, not necessarily tonight, but at a future meeting, take a fresh look at that whole thing, and based on what we know today, what's our plan going forward to get funding? When do we think we have a chance of getting it? How are we going to develop that thing? What kind of a timeline is it? Are we talking 10 years out? Are we talking 5 years out?
We need to have that, Kevin. We do need to talk about that because you do have funding right now that you're gonna lose if you don't use it.
Yeah,
And so that is something we need to talk about sooner than later.
But I'd just like to see maybe staff put together, hey, here's where we are in this whole thing. Here's where we're heading. Are we going fast enough? Do we have the right vision?
Here's some options for the next few years here.
You are anything update on that? Is it definitely not gonna be any dollars spent on the waterfront?
they haven't made a decision on that
Okay,
at this
still.
point.
And we haven't gotten the phase 2 study, Elaine Howard consulting is working on that phase 2 study. We should have that before the October 18th meeting, so that was gonna be a discussion item of the result of that study.
Okay, thank you.
So we can check.
Are you giving a report?
No, well, I submitted a written report. But
It says interim. I think we'll go with.
You know, what's weird about this is that Genevieve did the interim executive director's report and Michael did the bridge replacement report. I didn't have to do anything.
You get to present.
First one's free.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And by the way, nothing's free.
Right.
Okay,
You pay now or you pay later.
Kevin, enjoy it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Vacation's over.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the only thing I wanted to add is that the finance director recruitment is out. And so that's out on the League of Oregon Cities, Special Districts, AOC, the county, everybody's seeing that out there now. That schedule, the person would be on board by early January. Is the schedule there. And then the other thing too is that the legal RFP is also out, but I haven't gotten any responses yet. I don't think staff has either. So those are the only other two things that are worth mentioning.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Kevin or Michael, but we need to have at least a quick talk on the CFA. And how it relates to the port here. And the CFA is this new formation agreement for the Bi-State Bridge Authority. The thing that I want to bring to you is the way the draft is written right now. There is 3 directors from Oregon, 3 from Washington. Right now, they are basically appointed by Klickitat County and by Hood River County. At our last Bi-State working group, there was a suggestion made that that be modified and that White Salmon and Bingen provide 2 of those spots as nominations into Klickitat County. It's basically a rubber stamp. They say, yep, A and B is done, and they offer up a 3rd candidate for the last position. Do we want, right now, on the Oregon side, the port has nothing to do with it. I think with the interface that's going to have happen with the port over the next 10 years, port may want to have that right to put somebody on that board. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hood River, if Washington goes that way, Hood River will want to go that way as well. But it's time to, if that's what you want to do, we got to get it into the document now. So does the
Michael,
port have
reason
any?
we wouldn't want to do that?
No, I
You
mean.
guys, I mean, can you see a reason we wouldn't reserve that right?
I think we have so much involvement, especially with financial tolling, all of that. I think we need to stay involved for the next 10 years. At least.
I would recommend that we stay involved in it until at least a new bridge is up and running.
Yeah.
And then maybe at that time, and we can modify the agreement anytime we want to.
Yeah.
As long as there's a majority, and then at that time, maybe pull back out of it. But I can see interface problems coming in to right across this office. All the work that's going to be going on interface with the marina and everything else. Not having a rep on that board doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I agree.
So.
Go ahead.
To modify, okay. Modify that.
Commissioner Fox, I believe Anna's reviewed the CFA as well, so I don't know if you've got any other concerns or thoughts in your review of the CFA, not to surprise you with the question, but.
No, I appreciate you asking. I have to double check, Commissioner Fox, I think that, the composition of the authority, the new Bi-State Bridge Authority is mandated by the legislation. And I would want to double check that because I'm not sure, but I thought that, that the legislation stated like who the representatives would be, but I want to double check. that.
You know what,
Well,
now that you say that, I think you are correct about
So I
that,
think-
so we
I
may
think
not
that
be.
is-
So Washington may not be able to
That
change it.
is correct.
I don't think
Okay.
that it's something that, unless you go back to the legislators past that.
Yeah.
The statutes.
But if we don't have to do that, it's our position, we would like
Stay.
that right to name.
And the way I understood it, just to make sure, is one from White Salmon Bingen, or 2 from White Salmon and Bingen, 1 from Klickitat County, 1 from the port, 1 from the city of Hood River, and 1 from the county of Hood River.
Well,
Rather than the
we
3.
haven't really heard from Hood River.
Okay.
Kate did, I don't believe really made her opinion. I don't know whether they've talked about it.
My thought was just like you said, if everybody else is getting one, I would imagine.
I would
the city
think
of
they
Hood
would
River.
want one
So
too.
Do we want to make it change that way, or do you want to leave it 2 from county and 1 from the port and see what Hood River City would like to do?
No reason not to ask them.
Before
I
we.
can't imagine that they would.
Yeah,
So we're
just
okay to
make a
reach out
call.
to them and find out if they would like to.
Just
do
make a
that.
call to Kate, or if you want, I'll call her.
We can reach out to them. If that's okay, we do that.
Be perceived as going around if you didn't, but then we have to check and see if we can.
And we'll,
do that,
we'll
obviously.
confirm before we reach out to anybody or change it. We'll confirm that. I think you're right, though. I think it
Well,
does actually.
If we confirm that we can't do that, we need to get that word back to
Yeah,
Washington quickly.
I think-
Another thing that might change, I apologize, I haven't had a chance to dive into the second draft of the agreement, is that currently there, or at least in the first draft, there was a representative from the bi-state working group, the advisory committee to the court, that there would be a non-voting member of the new bridge authority that is a kind of a, that is a representative of the court. And I think
Correct.
that I don't know if that's changed in the new version. I would have to double check.
No, it's still there. I looked at that.
So are
But
these-
again, the issue, I think, for this body here is it's a non-voting member.
Well, my impression was that that might be the case to avoid like conflict of interest. Potential conflicts that could come up, because we've got two organizations that are providing the same service essentially. But I think that's that'll, I don't need to keep that, I think it's all get flushed out.
And there will be a third version, so version 2 is currently being reviewed by the 6 agencies, and there will be a third version that everybody can review as well.
All right, thank you. I don't see any committee reports. Was there anything to note? Okay. Then we have 1, 2, 3 action items. Yana's not here, so who's taking the first one?
That is just business to add Kevin to the bank signature cards and remove me. The court's fiscal policy says that it's 3 commissioners, the executive director, and 1 designee. Because of some of our online banking interfaces with just our regular banking and our investment accounts. If we remove Fred Cal from the signature card, they won't let us sign in to do the business we need to do regularly. And it would be kind of a pause in some important daily business to do that. So it's better to take me off than Fred and have Fred be the designee until the new finance director is onboarded.
And that's the piece of paper you see in front of you.
I got a real problem with that, but
Yeah.
I just don't like the idea of a non-port employee or a non-port elected official having signatory authority over finance.
Does it take 2?
It does.
It does take
Takes
two.
2,
Yeah.
so I had the same concern myself too, but there's
It
checks
is-
and balance.
It is an awkward situation.
Yeah.
We weren't expecting it to take this long to
Yeah,
hand off. Yeah,
And it's temporary. As soon as we get a new finance director,
We'll have another one of these.
or we can actually put steps in place to change it from Fred to Yana, for example. And then go through this ritual again. But we want to get Kevin on the signature card as quick as possible. So we might bring this to you in another month with another set of names. You
Okay.
know? Yeah. But for tonight, it didn't make sense to take Fred off because then it'll.
so why
interrupt
couldn't we
things.
just put Yana on it? What would be the issue with Fred not being on it?
As soon as Fred is removed from the signature card, then that halts our access to things that are under his name.
Yeah.
So we'd like to get those wheels in motion
transfer.
first so that it doesn't interrupt daily business. So if we can do that, where we're ready to flip the switch, we're just not ready to do that tonight.
Okay, so Fred, and I'm sorry to take up time here, but Fred is on retainer. So
Yes.
every time that Yana needs to go in and look at the website, you have
And
to go to
Debbie.
Fred.
And Debbie. They log in at.
So they're using
Public
his
session.
password.
I can't really discuss it in public session, but if Fred's name is removed, then we would lose access to. some
I
banking.
understand that. You would have to give access to somebody else.
Right, and that takes more than just a day to do that, so.
This,
What we could as an alternate is we can leave everything as is until such time that we can add Kevin and remove Fred and add Yana at the same time. If you can do no action, just leaves everything.
No, we need
as
to
is.
add Kevin.
Yeah.
He's our director.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kevin needs to go on.
Yeah.
I will sign it, but I still think Fred should come off.
Get your finance director hired quickly.
Well-
it's an awkward,
Well, the thing that always came to me is what happened if there was a terrible accident,
Right.
you know, then what happens? I don't know the answer, but
So do we want to prove it tonight, but have the wheels start tomorrow?
Yes.
Getting Fred off there?
I think they already
I
are
don't
the
get-
moment we hire somebody, yeah.
Well, I mean,
No, I think we can get them off sooner by getting Jan on.
yeah, and that way there's no time to wait.
there's some double custody questions about whether or not that would be right.
Because if you might get her on, you might have to have,
And we
somebody
also
else
have
on as well.
Debbie,
Yeah.
Debbie is also on contract and performing a lot.
So
of
who makes that
duties,
decision?
But she's not an employee.
Is that legal counsel makes that decision, or who makes that decision that who we have to have on there?
You guys.
No. The federal government makes a decision. You said.
No, it supports financial policy
Okay.
that designates who are the eligible signers.
Okay.
And so it's sort of fitting the right person in those roles onto those available slots. So on the staff level, it's the executive director and one designee.
Okay.
Which could be, it could be Kevin and me, for example. But then we would lose the, as soon as Fred is on authorized signer, then we have a break in some daily operational stuff. that we Can't really have a break.
how long is the process to change over those past words and usernames and?
That I'm not sure. It sounded like it was pretty complicated. That involved our. It's something you wouldn't want to do more than once.
Well, we gotta keep moving forward, so, yeah.
Well, we can just, if you'd like, we could look into what that process is and getting
Oh, yeah.
usernames and passwords changed for our online banking.
We have-
I mean,
Guys,
that's-
it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It isn't. I signed it, but I think we're hanging out here a while. Financially.
Any comment, council?
Uh,
As far as liability though.
I don't, from a practical perspective, I don't think having Fred on there is. Seems the staff's recommendation seems to be best. I don't see any. I see minimal of this.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Mr. President, I can resolution 22-23-1 authorizing port bank account signatures.
Second,
Well, second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I as well, it is passed, thank you. B has gone away, wire rope project, John.
Good evening, everybody. I'll start right out with saying, I sure would have liked to have seen about 4 contractors on that list rather than 1. If there's a bright side to that story, it's that it's a very reputable contractor. They are currently working on the Dalles Bridge. And the reason I believe, and I don't have anything to back this up, but I believe the reason we didn't get other bids was because everybody knew they were right here and mobilization couldn't beat. Like they were gonna be really tough to beat. The other contractors, all real reliable. This happened to be one of the contractors that our engineers recommended in this area to do this work. So when they bid, I was glad to see it. On the bright side, they're $74,000 below the engineer's estimate, which is great news. In many circumstances, I would probably just ask that we throw them out. But I don't believe we will do any better than this, taking this back out to add. As a matter of fact, I believe we'll probably do worse. Like the numbers coming back a second time would be higher than this. So I'm making the recommendation that we approve intent to award to Hamilton Construction.
Couple of questions for you,
Sure.
if I could. One, is there an escalation clause in the pricing?
No, there's not.
It's fixed.
It's fixed.
Second is, what's the duration and what's the start date?
Okay, so the wire rope build is approximately a 6-month build. It takes that long to stretch the ropes so that when they hang them, they don't have to, hopefully, but don't have to come back and readjust them. So the time frame is roughly 6 months. It's a 4-day
project. And that's a 4-day complete closure on the bridge.
Are they able to work on the weekends?
Yeah, it would be a Friday through a Monday. The other side, the thing I want to be sure that you all understand is in 6 months, they come back and look at that. If those ropes have stretched, they have to rehang the counterweights and do it again.
At their cost,
That's part of the contract.
so it
It's
is
included in this, correct? So getting it right is probably job one for them. But if a cable were to stretch, that's not necessarily something they did wrong, it's. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that this is actually really, we're very possibly signing up for 2 4-day closures within 6 months of each other.
So how, okay. For this price, which is good.
Yep.
When you look at their contract, how can they get out of it? Because they have no escalation in here. It's at least a 6-month delivery.
They've worked with, they already have a quote that's being held for them at this point. So if we award right now and intend to award, that gives me in 10 days when the contest period is over, I can give the award instantly and they can get it. And their contractor for the cables will hold that price until we award.
Okay, and there's nothing in our contract that says. If something happens and they can't get it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, we can't terminate the contract.
We could probably terminate contract for cause at any point.
But usually you have to put some
But-
kind of a schedule in there.
Well, fortunately, in this situation, we had the engineers do a deep dive in with these companies that build the ropes prior to going out to add. So we had a good idea what the cost was, what the timing was. And then when the contract went out to add, both the engineers and people bidding were providing the information for this. So basically, it's really no different than any other steel installation right now. It's, they're fixed, they've got that price. They know how long it's gonna take. That's six months approximately. And that's pretty much a guarantee we'll have it in 6 months.
So,
I would feel a little more comfortable if we had something in there that says. Hey, you got a year to build this.
I can certainly, there isn't any reason we couldn't put that into the contract as a. I don't know what you call that. I call it say again, a contingency in the contract. There isn't any reason we can't put something like that.
I just don't like open-ended contracts. So
Mhm. Well, they have working days and those working days kick off. The working days kick off on this contract the
Yeah,
day
but
we
it's the-
award.
it's the start as I'm worried about. I just think if you put an end date of a year from now. Now you've got some negotiating that if something happens, they can't get it, you can always extend it. But you can't. It makes it more difficult to get rid of the guy because you can't get the cable.
Yeah, we can definitely do something like that. In the
I just look
contract.
at something like that to protect us. That we may decide that. You can't do it, we need to go out for another contract.
I mean, I think legally the working
Hopefully
days
that
does
won't
that,
work, I mean.
because there's nowhere in there where they get a grace period for not being able to get the cable. So, and let's just say during the closure itself, there's $10,000 fine attack, I don't want to, let me rephrase that, there's $10,000 liquidated damages associated on the hour after they're done.
The issue that we've
Install
got here is we don't have a start date. If we had a start date or a range of start dates, I'm fine. Right now, it's an open-ended. We think it's gonna be about 6 months, but we really don't know.
Well, I think Anna can probably help me get through something added to the contract that would cover us on that.
Yeah, I know that what we included in the bid documents was a form of contract that we reserved the right to modify as needed. And so we can take, I can't remember the terms right off the top of my head, what we had, but I do recall us discussing both the damages provision and that there are a set period of dates. We talked about the 4 days specifically.
That's correct.
So having a start date, I think once the contract is signed, like you would have that date in place before the contract is signed.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So-
I'm not understanding.
No, I think the issue is you pick a date beyond the 6 months. You want them to start on or before that date. If they don't start by that date, then we have the ability to close off the contract and go for another one.
Yeah, we can review it.
And then the only other thing I have is, if we're looking at 6 months, so that we're kind of thinking April-ish is when they would begin the work. So I think that we need to start communicating to the public now that this is coming.
Genevieve is here. We're already talking about that. And I actually wrote this in a way and have put this in a way that we will have we will, from the day we award, the contractor will get back to me within 2 days to tell me when those cables will be delivered.
Okay, and then I think we just need to coordinate and touch base with the school district, touch base with, so
You got the
we
bridges.
don't run, we don't run
I
into
couldn't agree
anything.
more.
Is it graduation?
There was
There's always gonna be
graduation,
something.
there's always gonna be
We communicate
something.
better.
That's
but
right. That's right. I agree. I
More
completely agree. We,
plan.
with the word we plan on, as soon as we have a frame of where it's gonna go, we plan on getting a public announcement out, just saying it's coming in roughly this time. Then we'll pin that date down and we will say it's on this weekend. Luckily, this is not weather contingent, so we don't have that same problem of what if the weather's bad.
Right.
This can be done no matter what the weather is. So once they plan a weekend, that's when it will take place. Stafford, Wisjani engineers will be on site. They will be the inspectors. They will be the ones making sure that this gets all put together exactly as it should be.
Okay.
So they're, as far as eyes on the project, and I'm not qualified to look at that. I'm qualified to get them up there and help them look around. And I have enough experience to know when something's going right and when something's going wrong up there. And
So this contractor, there's a second contractor part of this, the engineering team.
that's just ours, and we've already
Okay.
got them on a
Okay.
contract for
So
that work.
so they're underway building a work package or something to explain how to install this.
Well, the contractor, we don't tell the contractor how to install. They tell us how they're going to install. And
So,
then
but these guys are your technical arm. that
they're
says,
there
"Yep,
to
it
just to be
looks good."
sure it's getting
Yeah,
done
okay.
correctly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the big one.
Very big one.
We don't like to make a move.
I move to authorize intent to award contract to Hamilton Construction Company for the wire rope replacement project in amount not to exceed $1,119,250. And authorize the executive director to sign the contract subject to legal review and barring no protest.
Second,
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
I as well.
Thank you, commissioners.
One more, Kevin, contract.
Yes, so the ARUP contract that is in your packet, ARUP basically provides owner's rep services to the port in reviewing HNTV's contracts. So we don't have the expertise on staff, so whenever there's a amendment to the HNTV contract, we execute ARUP, have them come in, review the documents, and then they can give that analysis on that it looks like a fair deal. So the current amendment number 1, that will be fully expended, ARUP's existing contract. And so my recommendation is that we renew, or actually it would be a new contract, a standalone contract for subsequent amendments, because we know that we're gonna have at least a second amendment. And we don't know if there may be a third or a fourth.
I guarantee you there will be a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh.
Though I will say, will there be a third or a fourth or a seventh before the end of June 30 of next year?
Probably, hopefully not.
Hopefully not, but it's just, I don't think that we'll use that full amount, but I think it's good to have enough wiggle room. So that if we do need it, we don't have to come back to you. So it's basically just representing the commission when HNTV brings their materials to you.
Checks and balances. Good.
Kind of add to that, since we're using federal and state funds, they're gonna be looking at us. How do you know that you got a reasonable deal? And this is a kind of an insurance policy for us to make sure that we're doing our due diligence of the oversight. So I fully support doing this. I think we got to do it.
Let's have a motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize personnel services contract for procuring advising with a rough US Incorporated, the amount not to exceed 50,000.
All in favor?
Bye.
I as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, Commissioner call, Commissioner Strike.
Yeah, just thinking, would anybody be interested in maybe in January, because January is usually the slowest month, holidays are out of the way. Maybe having a roundtable workshop to address the waterfront, airport, and the marina. Like we talked about those days, the pods, just have a roundtable. So they got January, now they got 4 or 5 months before they start heating up with activity to start addressing those questions we have, give us some answers. But like, anyway, I asked my ideas about the airport, but we need to sit down with Greater and stuff, and maybe at a round table, we throw it all out there. You guys bring something you think you're passionate about and just have a couple-hour round table in January. You know, it's bad weather, not much is going on, just suggestion, but
We haven't done that for a while. It's a good idea.
yeah, I just think we don't, you know, we don't utilize the off months. If these guys get slammed and we're throwing things at them, this way we can throw something at them or suggest something. And they can have their input on a round table. I'm just thinking the 5 commissioners, ED, you know, and then all board department heads. You know, the staff can stay in there and work and stuff. It's just us out here. It's a public meeting, but just a round table chat.
I like it.
See that, this is in like Phoenix.
Yeah. I'll come back.
Well, why-
Yeah.
Why don't we look into that in January, something like that, and then if businesses we don't have too much business to take care of, we can do that instead of a formal meeting that month, and if we needed to knock out the business, we could. Says it a public meeting. So.
Would it be fair to say that that could be viewed as a goal setting for the budget process? Is there, I mean, do you see there being things that come out of that session that we could then incorporate into the budget process?
Almost
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
be the first tier to it.
Yeah, I like that.
But I would offer up, before we get there, we think through some rules of what we want to talk about. And maybe it's really upper level stuff, strategy of where we're trying to take the port. And no holes barred. Example. We were looking at down at the marina and the port area. And we're getting all twisted up because Hood River said you can't build this there, zoning laws.
Right.
Well, I'd like to kind of take that meeting and cast off all of that stuff. What we really want to do down there. Not what we can do, but what would we really like to do if you're really trying to, 1, maximize revenue, and 2, major benefit to the community. What do they really want down there?
Yeah, I think my motivation today to bring this up was revenue streams.
Mhm.
That was at the bottom. I mean, you know, you gotta look at in the next 10 years. Yeah.
I think it's like 4 or 5 years.
Well,
Let's
no,
get that
no,
on
next
there.
10 years. Doing
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I just think that yeah, that's perfect, but I think it's important that we all bring ideas and that are realistic. I'm gonna call you back.
It's his turn to talk.
Yeah, yeah, well, you know, our ultimate goal would be like in the waterfront, what do we want to achieve? Like at the airport, what do we want to achieve? I mean, are we gonna be revenue neutral, or are we gonna be at the red or black or whatever? But we need to know. If we don't know, they don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've never had that luxury. They've always been trying to figure out what the hell we want. We
We're
need
just
to be
being
clear.
proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly, yeah.
Good idea.
Thanks, Toby.
Commissioner Fox, anything?
No, we've been meeting with, a bunch of state reps the last couple weeks and the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then on October the 14th, Christie's got this, Christie's in charge of pulling a bunch of representatives from both Washington and Oregon out here for a whole morning. So we're putting a full court press on trying to get funds.
This is serious business now.
And these phone calls are going very well. It's primarily you, Mike, Mayor McBride, and myself, with
Jake Anderson.
yeah, at times. So they will continue for the next several weeks.
Lots of work.
Thank you for doing it. Commissioner Gary?
Anything. That was fun meeting at Double Mountain.
That was great.
Yeah,
Well attended. Thank you.
you should do that more often.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yeah, I just want to echo Commissioner Fox at all of the work that has been being done behind the scenes from especially Commissioner Fox and Kevin and also other members of the Bi-State Working Group. I think that, you know, everyone's going above and beyond their volunteer hour times to help with this project, which really shows what a community effort is. So just want to acknowledge Clickitat County and, you know, Hood River City and County, and everyone's just diving in.
City White Salmon.
City White Salmon, Bingen, yeah, they're all just, it's been neat to see, so, all the support, so just want to acknowledge all of them.
I don't have too much to add. Thank you, everybody, for your work. You guys make this far too easy sometimes.
Yeah.
Appreciate all your hard work. All right, directives tonight. We have one regarding,
Okay.
Not one.
lot one, look into what the food cart. None on dock, look into the future. In multiple locations, I thought we have to limit ourselves, but where could we offer that potentially? We could go on this. Was there anything else
Just January.
in the January meeting as well?
And to be sure that we added some kind of verbiage into the contract for a drop dead date completion.
Thank you. To cover them?
Good.
Okay. Then with that, we can recess regular session and enter into executive session under RS 1926602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated to negotiate real estate property transactions.